Legacies. Some artists have phenomenal legacies that have stood the test of time. Other artists struggle to have sustainable legacies, even if they might have hit records. And then there's the unfortunate instance where an artist might pass away and they might have never been able to build a fully realized legacy. After an artist passes away, it's quite normal to see an outpouring of love and support from fans and music listeners. When an artist passes away, people mourn and tend to celebrate them for their great talents. And if their story has a tragic ending, they become eulogized in a way that is quite incomparable. I feel like there are three categories to this. The first being there's someone like Michael Jackson, who built an amazing legacy and was recognized for his accomplishments while he was alive. He made a significant impact on the music industry, and his contributions were celebrated during his lifetime and after it. Then the second category is someone like Aaliyah or Selena, who had impact but it wasn't fully recognized while they were alive, and they never got to fully conceive their artistry. Their influence became more widely appreciated and recognized after their death, and they also became bigger and more prominent after their death. Just for an example, 1994's Dreaming of You was supposed to be Selena's crossover English record, and it will become that, but in the most tragic case possible. Ultimately, it became the album that cemented her as a cross-cultural icon, and it is her best-selling album to date. Although it would have been likely that someone like Selena or Aaliyah would have been appreciated for their talents and contributions later in their career or life, their life and career was cut short, so now it is rightfully so appreciated. That's not to say they weren't commercially successful during their lifetime, but they became even bigger after death and icons in their own right. They continue to influence culture today, which most likely would have happened either way whether they lived or not. You could also say the same for someone like Biggie or Tupac. They were always destined to be legends. They were wildly popular in their lifetime, they helped push hip-hop forward as a cultural zeitgeist, and also just were phenomenal talents. Their eerie young deaths eventually pushed people to appreciate their talent more. They were coming up in a time where the media didn't even consider hip-hop real music. Decades later, hip-hop is the top genre, and they are arguably the most impactful rappers to ever live. Then the last category is someone like XXXTentacion, who has a very passionate fan base and cult following. He was known for his troubles and controversies, alongside his dark image in music. Although he might have influenced some people within his respective field, he never got to global superstar status, or even a culturally significant status within hip-hop. His legacy operates as a complicated one, with allegations of abuse being very prominent. His biggest song, Sad, peaked after his death. During his lifetime and after his lifetime, he got compared to Tupac, which is just inexplicably ridiculous. His legacy or outreach didn't touch a tenth of what Tupac's has. Tupac is one of the most influential rappers of all time. He was also an actor and outspoken personality on Black issues. Sure, they both had legal and personal troubles in their lifetime, and were both in touch with the youth and murdered at the height of their careers, but their overall differences are too strong to even compare. And it's just such an inaccurate and, for lack of better words, dumb comparison. Fans or stans will often try to pull a comparison like this to give more credit than what is due to their favorite artist, or just to spark controversy. A general listener wouldn't even come to think of this. The fact of the matter is, Tupac is Tupac, and X is X. They aren't comparable at all. Their music isn't similar, the subject matter isn't at all similar, and the amount of influence is vastly different. X wasn't able to have a full career, and neither was Tupac. But ultimately, the body of work Tupac has left behind is more extensive and far more influential. But that doesn't mean that X isn't impactful in his own right, it's just not comparable to Tupac. Cited from the Washington Post, simply put, death is hardly the end for musicians. Some stars explode in popularity upon their deaths because their celebrity images are already tragic to some degree, according to Mark Dufett, a professor of media and cultural studies. That stems from the fact that people are generally alienated from celebrities, since they can be in our lives as much as we desire, but cannot be touched. Celebrity therefore already contains a sense of loss, adds Dufett. A performer's death makes that palpable. We mourn the loss of a sustained creative presence. So the question is, do legacies get overhyped or over-exaggerated after death? I think so in some cases, but I also think the people who generally get praised with such high reverence after they're gone usually have had profound impact or influence. Are there loony and poor comparisons after death as well? Yes, but I don't think it's the common consensus. There's also fans who have made such a deep connection with one's music that they continue to have a major following even if they weren't major in their lifetime. Tragedy at a young age especially builds a certain fascination of what could have been, so fans continue to fiercely support that artist, keeping their name alive. Some artists might get lost in new ages, and might not have a re-evaluation or renaissance until later, but I also think there have been some great fans and families who have done a great job at preserving their favorite artist's legacy. Selena being the prime example of that. Whether young or old, you know who Selena is. She has museums, monuments, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, films, series, makeup lines, and her family hasn't released half-baked or downright bad albums just for the sake of financial gain. They have actually preserved her legacy with grace and made her influence known. Over 20 years after her death, she is still being appreciated. Ultimately, a legacy being kept alive is defined more so than anything by the fans. Regardless if an estate is releasing trash posthumous albums, or in Aaliyah's case, releases nothing at all. Death of an artist can also alter perception. Whitney Houston was commonly called a crackhead and made fun of for her drug use while alive. Now people like to use more kind words like troubled. Death can change the way we view an artist or their art, and I think that's why fans sometimes tend to grow even stronger after someone passes away.